if you're watching this YouTube video, the YouTube algorithm probably knows that you're young, ambitious, entrepreneurial. You're probably a fan of music. You probably like going to nightclubs, and you're probably spending your weekends and all your paychecks at festivals, much like I was in my 18 to, when did I stop DJing club promoting? Around like 24. And so if you sit into that bracket and all of my assumptions about you are right, the YouTube algorithm was right because it knows how you behave on the internet, what I'm going to talk to you about in this video is why you should consider becoming a nightclub promoter, because there's so many different gateways and opportunities that it's open to me. The office that we're in right now was a 7-figure digital advertising agency. Last year we run one of the top 5 independent agencies of the year. I've had multiple different businesses grow to 6 and 7 figures and beyond. And a lot of the skills that I learned started in nightclub promotion. I used to just be a DJ, local DJ. For those that you want to look at, it was called Wilco. I had like a mixtape go accidentally viral. I got invited to Skrillex's office, and then the natural progression for me after being a local DJ was I did a little bit of production as well. Fun fact, one of my remixes like out there on YouTube, I think it's my remix of A Day to Remember, one of the chords is actually out of key. I was such a fucking shit producer, but I was a good nightclub promoter. And those skills I learned as a nightclub promoter carried over into business and carried over into everything that I've been able to and been fortunate enough and grateful to have achieved. And so the first thing that's being a nightclub promoter teaches you is sales and marketing skills. Making money in business is purely about your ability to market your product and the ability to sell your product. I remember when I actually first got a nightclub promotion. So I was in Los Angeles. This was actually just around the time when that mixtape went viral. I got invited to the office and all that shit. And I was exchanging courses with someone that's, we were just like illegally downloading all these internet marketing courses and exchanging them on hard drives because we were just both fucking broken. So that's what we were doing. And I had a 37-hour trip home from, Los Angeles, all the way to here in Perth, Western Australia. So all the way to the other side of the fucking country. And I just had nothing to do for the 37-hour trip. So I just binge watched this entire, I think it was Tai Lopez's social media marketing accelerator, whatever the fuck it was called. And I just got back to Perth and I was like, oh my God, this is going to be my entire personality for the rest of my fucking life. And so I talked to the venue manager at the nightclub that I was DJing at and I said, hey, I've learned all this stuff. I'd really like to be able to utilize it. And he said, yeah, started giving me more responsibility. I ended up managing the Saturday night and the Friday night, and then that opened opportunities with other clubs. And eventually I was just the kind of go-to guy in Perth for nightclub promotion. I still, even though I have some nightlife clients now, I got a message the other day from a really big nightclub promoter here in Perth asking me to be his marketing manager. I'm like, dude, I'm running fucking 2 companies. I can't have like a full-time job on top of this. And all of it came down to was marketing and sales. So your ability to get attention on the internet or manage a team, which I'm actually going to talk about in a bit, and just get more heads through the door, especially when you're in an ultra competitive space like nightlife. Like there's a bar on every fucking street. And so marketing and sales and getting, especially in a competitive environment, is going to set you off for success. Like I said at the start of this video, if you've got entrepreneurial tendencies or you're really ambitious and you want to start a business in the future, it's going to give you an unfair advantage in that. The second thing being a nightclub promoter teaches you, or at least gives you opportunities to, is networking. I cannot fucking tell you how many clients, connections, opportunities I've had just open up by just being in the green room. It's just like whenever I go to, I don't go to nightclubs very often now because I'm 29 and I'm old and I'm like a divorced dad listening to Creed and smoking cigars and drinking whiskey. The opportunities that open in those circles are profound. I actually had a kid that I was mentoring and he wasn't even I don't know if I should say this. I'm not going to say his name. He's not even legally allowed to be in nightclubs because he's underage. He's under 21. And he'd be backstage, meeting like Usher and shit like that, and just connecting with all these high net worth individuals. And that was actually his intention becoming a nightclub promoter, was just getting into these circles of like high net worth individuals or well-connected people. And so when I started, for example, at a smaller scale, when I started my digital advertising agency, most of my clients just came from word of mouth and people just knew me in the nightlife. Because obviously being at a nightclub, being in nightlife, being at festivals, you're just meeting just a high volume of people. And that high volume of interactions and meetings and introductions is what really creates those opportunities when you're networking. The third skill that it teaches you is operations or logistics. Now, managing events with managing a team, DJs, like booking DJs, booking photographers, handling the marketing, handling different departments, it's pretty chaotic when it comes to nightlife because nightlife, there's a deadline coming up. And so you're constantly communicating with so many different people. The nightclub promoters that I know, even now I'm not a nightclub promoter anymore, but the nightclub promoters that I know now are fucking on their phones constantly, communicating with so many people. There's so many different deadlines that they had to keep up with. And in business, speed is absolutely critical. You can beat most people if you're just faster from problem state to solution state. And being a nightclub promoter teaches you that like ultra fast velocity of decision making, problem solving, communication. And when you pursue other businesses later, it's gonna feel like a fucking like walk in the park compared to managing a nightclub event with 1,000 people, or even a music festival with 10,000 people. This one's super important, but also very closely linked to marketing and sales, but building a brand. Now, there's so many different nightclub events out there where their whole brand just revolves around a fucking logo and a fucking color scheme. Like, it shits me beyond belief. I think my most popular YouTube video, the like 3 steps to launching a successful nightclub event, I think I go on a rant on about it, where I say like, your event is not the fucking logo. Like, just doing a rebrand, like making the logo look different is not the brand. For example, I was managing the social media for Arcade Nightclub, and we had a phenomenal brand. Like, our organic reach and engagement just dwarfed every single other nightclub in Perth. And I also know that as a fact because I was an admin or an editor on like most of those like nightlife Facebook pages and Instagram accounts. But building a brand that actually stands out amongst other people. For example, when I was posting on Arcade Nightclub's Facebook page, or just like shit posting on the Instagram, everything just slapped because firstly, I was there every Friday and Saturday for half a decade. I knew the customer avatar really, really well, which I've talked about in other videos. So whenever I posted anything, if anyone was to scroll through Arcade Nightclub's Facebook page, it would read like something that their best friend had posted. And that's why people were tagging their friends and sharing and things like that, because it was relatable. And relatability is one of the key factors to something going viral and getting engagement. This one is going to serve you remarkably well as well. Risk management, or building risk tolerance, being able to calculate risks, being able to... This is a little bit of a side tangent, but your life will drastically improve the better your decision-making becomes, because your decision-making processes essentially dictates the future, and your ability to predict the future within variances of error is going to set you up for success. And risk management in events, there's so many different things you had to calculate. You had to calculate how successful a competitor will be, what your budget should be, where your break even is. The other thing as well that it builds up is your risk tolerance, because I've got a lot of kids that I've been mentoring, Club Cult creators, that they learn Facebook ads, they spend all this money on ads, but it doesn't really become, like, the way it works is it doesn't really become profitable until like the couple of days before the actual event, and then it becomes massively profitable. So in the whole lead up to that, you're just like, fuck, is this gonna work? They're like messaging me, panicking, and then like later they'll be messaging me like, oh no, it's like printing now in the last 48 hours. And so that risk tolerance, like I was actually thinking about this last night because someone was pissing me off, but I was thinking about how you can really tell how busy or successful or driven someone is by what stresses them out. So for example, all right, fuck it, I'll use my girlfriend as an example, even though she's probably gonna watch it. Sometimes she comes home from work and she just has like a regular job where she's happy and she likes what she does, but she's not running like 2 fucking companies, right? She gets home, she talks about like, this stressed me out, and then like this person yelled at me, and this person blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, man, I fucking wish I had that kind of day, right? So it's just the level, eventually the threshold. I've talked about this with like different things. So for example, with like becoming a DJ, there's like a threshold where everything ahead of you just looks really, really good. So when you're like not a DJ and you want to be a DJ, playing to a room where there's just like 2 bartenders and 5 people on the dance floor, like that looks great. And then the next one might be like 100 people, 200 people, 300 people, 400 people. But eventually you just like set this new baseline. So if you're doing anything below that, it just like, you just don't even fucking care. Like for example, like at the start of my DJ career, I would have been happy playing to, like I said, just like a birthday party and there's like 5 people in a shed. I'd be like over the fucking moon about that. But at the end, I was playing to like 1,000 people every Saturday in a super club in Perth. And if I had like less than 500 people, I'm like, why the fuck did I even get out of bed for this stuff? Like the bar just keeps getting raised. Same thing with like alcohol and drinking, the bar just always gets raised. So like my threshold for fun is just way too expensive now. And it's the same with stress. So for example, I've talked about this in like other videos where I've journaled very, very consistently for like the last half decade. And usually I will journal about, well, not just, but I'll journal about things that are stressing me out. And I can look back at my journals from like 2-3 years ago about things that were stressing me out. I'm like, dude, that isn't even a fucking blink on my fucking radar anymore, because the threshold for stress just constantly gets increased. A lot of the, like, I know so many people that are monumentally more successful than me, both financially and so many other things. And, you know, I know business owners that are doing fucking like $100 million plus in hospitality space. They're getting calls from like government departments like constantly around the clock. They just see their phone go off. They don't even blink. So the threshold for stress just constantly gets increased. And I've got a pretty high tolerance for stress just from being in nightlife and being in that space, because it's constantly go, 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 go. Leadership and management. Now, if I wanted to get really specific, I would split these up. A mentor of mine, this is very cringe me saying this, but a mentor once told me like leadership is heart, management is head. And so leadership is your ability to round up a bunch of people with one very ambitious vision, which I've talked about in multiple videos before about like how to really drive a team towards one thing and getting them around that and inspiring them to essentially just build a cult for you. And management is your ability to look at the numbers, make analytical decisions. So for example, like, what's your process for recruiting promoters? What's your process for onboarding promoters? What's your management for managing promoters? What's your process for tracking their success? What's your process for managing content teams, booking DJs? All this like analytical, logical stuff. And being a nightlife promoter, you have to do both at the same time. And so it will treat you really well becoming a nightclub promoter, because as you're building businesses, you've got to recruit people, you've got to inspire people, you've got to point people in one specific vision. And learning that in nightlife, that was probably one of the first skills that I actually learned. And the last thing that nightlife teaches you is creativity. And that's really going to help you in every single aspect, because there's so many nightclub events, there's so many music festivals where it's just like, their whole unique selling point is we have DJs coming and it's open at this time and this place and it's in this building. Whereas as the space gets more and more competitive, you need to think out of the box. You need to think of more creative marketing strategies. You need to think of viral PR campaigns. You need to think of, hey, besides just having music playing in a room and we're serving drinks, like what experiences can we create? Like a lot of what my first mentor and the venue manager that was the first nightclub promoter got me to do was just come up with just like weird shit to just do in the club, so that if someone took a photo of it, like, what the fuck, that happened in a nightclub. And this creativity and innovation will serve you really well, because it helps with your out of the box thinking. Because typically what will happen is if you don't learn this, you'll just keep doing the same thing and expect a different result. And that will prevent your growth. So a tangible example of how I'm doing this literally this week is, so at my digital advertising agency, we run workshops for business owners where we teach them in 2 days how to grow their business on the internet with Facebook ads, Google ads, landing pages, stuff like that. Historically, it's just been like a little bit of a side revenue thing. We did like 12 people in a room, but the thing's really growing now. And so we're getting more and more demand that we had to fulfill. So for example, we've gone from like 12 people in a room like 2 months ago to our next workshop is 50 people. And 3 months after that, we had to figure out how to deliver it to 100 people at once. And our target is to do 250 people in a room sometime this year. And so me and the team have to sit down and go, hey, if we were to still deliver the same results, and it's more complicated than it sounds, but deliver this to 250 people at once, how do we do that? And those are the constraints. And so you had to think, okay, if I had to make my like nightlife event bring more people and I could just like wave a magic wand, but you know, it has to be legal, it has to like work in the constraints of the venue and things like that. That's what exercises your creativity and innovation muscle, let's call it. So if you've made it this far to the end of this YouTube video, my assumption at the start of this video is probably correct. You're probably young, ambitious, and entrepreneurial. And if you are, you should consider subscribing to this YouTube channel, because my whole vision in life is to inspire the ambitious youth of the world. And that's all I do on this YouTube channel. So check out some of the links in the description, check out some of the previous YouTube videos, and you'll be better off for it.